Into Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter for posting pictures of her grandmother's storm-ravaged home in Puerto Rico instead of helping her. The progressive Democrat tweeting her grandmother recently fell ill and that she visited her for the first time in over a year because of COVID. Ocasio-Cortez then blaming former President Trump for her condition. The New York Congresswoman, whose salary is $174,000 a year paid by taxpayers, is now getting hammered online. Here's a sample. AOC. My grandma can't fix her ceiling without a Washington bailout. Also, she's letting her abuela live in squalor in Puerto Rico. And my favorite, honey, you drive a Tesla and have 2 apartments. If your grandmother is living poor, that's because you don't help her out. I'm surprised that a socialist wouldn't redistribute that wealth to their grandma. Sad. Sean Duffy, I'll start with you on this. Part of what was so shocking were the visuals of her apartment, right? So that's why the public reacted so strongly, especially in comparison to a Tesla and 2 luxury apartments.
Yeah, listen, she's not without money. She doesn't have any kids. She doesn't have a spouse. $174,000 for a single person is a lot of money. And so with socialists, though, they'll have the government do what they could do for themselves, right? So she could give her money, go help her grandma out. But socialists say, no, 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 that's not my responsibility. Let the government do it. Let government take care of grandma. I want my Tesla and I want my nice apartments. I'm not going to help her. It's actually shameful.
Jenna, is this criticism of her valid?
Well, I want to be clear that the criticism is only coming from a handful of people, and then we're creating space for it in this particular conversation. Sean, how do you know that her grandmother's not okay? I'm pretty sure she responded saying, don't worry, my grandmother's totally taken care of. And just because she makes $174,000 a year, she can't point out inequity and injustice, particularly in our response to the greatest natural disaster in American history, taking the lives of 3,000 people. So anyone who's making more than $170,000 a year can't talk about social inequities. How are you going to then hold corporations who don't pay any taxes accountable on that? If you can't talk the talk, I mean, she's surely walking the walk here. I don't know why this is a conversation when her grandmother's doing just fine. And
she's not helping anybody but herself. She's lighting herself up on Twitter. She knew what those pictures would do. Come on.
We know $174,000.
She could have helped other people, but instead she didn't.
Wait, hold on, time out. She's raised her hand to be a congressperson. How could you possibly say that she's not like sitting happy on a beach somewhere, picking out her next version of a Tesla? So she drives a green car. You're right, but you also don't know that her grandmother isn't totally taken care of.
We do have some facts here, like she has an apartment in a luxury building in Washington, D.C. I know the area. The apartment's sold for $2,500.
She pays $2,500 a month.
Reality. A lot of Americans can't even afford that. And the problem, you talk about you can't point out inequity.
Of course not.
AOC
Why can't you point out inequity if she makes $170,000 a year?
Jenna, it's my turn now. AOC only points out inequity when it's convenient to her political talking point. And that is a fact, because you recall those pictures of her at the border, whining about how bad the conditions were, the squalor. Where is she now when there are 13-year-old girls urinating in bags under Biden's watch in facilities that he has set up? Where is AOC at the border now? She's at her grandmother's house because she thinks that's convenient to go after the president on Puerto Rico.
Kayleigh, if you want to turn the conversation to the border, we can, but you all seem really concerned about her grandma.
Convenient.
Right, Jenna, and I'll let you take this as well as part of the question, that I hear what you're saying about pointing out inequities, absolutely, but it seems like it's disproportionately placed on the shoulders of the prior administration. So my question to you is, do you see that there's a lack of acceptance by the progressive left on the burden that they share, especially in perpetuating the dependency cycle that our tax dollars pay for, that only perpetuate poverty, frankly, and the disconnect, especially of achievement within these classes?
Emily, I really appreciate that question. It's the smartest one so far. And to that, I don't know. It's hard for me to not look at social programs as being a foundation for the stability of this country, be it public schools, be it emergency rooms, be it water filtration systems, be it how is it that we're creating more moments for people to be more civically engaged. And I do sit further left on that and believe putting more resources into people's basic human rights is more wise than creating tax cuts for the wealthy, but I think that's the most existential and smartest question to date, and one that we should spend more time talking about.
And just a quick circling back on you, Jenna, just a quick respectful circling back. Can you please answer whether you feel that the progressive left disproportionately blames the prior administration for these inequities, and that there isn't sort of a measure of taking responsibility for the own impact their actions have, especially coming from the saviorist mentality of a lot of people in power? Jenna?
No, because I do think that the former administration pulled the rug out of a lot of social-based programming. And I mean, again, going back to its conservative versus, more liberal financial policies, and that's how sort of the pendulum swings. I do, again, sit on the side that I think more social programming is smarter for our people. So I would say probably not to that specific question, Emily. I hope I'm answering it.
It's important to deal in facts, not platitudes. And let's go through some facts. On Trump's watch, lowest unemployment for Black Americans and Hispanic Americans in history, biggest income gains, doubling what they got under Obama for Black Americans, for Hispanic Americans. The results are there. Opportunity zones, which were working. Yeah. People were more empowered, had more access to this economy, not through social programs, but the ability to get a job in their community. The facts bear that out.
So the key part, and Sean, I want to come to you real quickly on this and let you take it home. The key part in all of that is not these social programs that don't lead to employment. Exactly. Because that was the thing. I mean, that once you get people, that's what's hurting us right now. We've got to figure out how to help people, but also get them back to work. The economy needs the momentum of people moving. Sean?
So we've sent hundreds of millions of dollars down to Puerto Rico. I'm someone who is an advocate of Puerto Rico. I don't have any Puerto Ricans in my old district, but I care about Puerto Rico. And we gave the money. Now, how that money is distributed on the island is something completely different, and we see a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse in Puerto Rico, number one. But number two, AOC was talking about her grandmother, not the island as a whole. And if your grandmother's ceiling, Jenna, is falling in, well, go fix it. Don't buy the Tesla. Go help grandma out, and you can still send a tweet out as the plight of the island, but don't use your mom or your grandmother as example when you have cash to help her. And that's why everyone is so outraged by the AOC tweet.
Sean, that's a great point. And take it from me as a former federal attorney, the more that you spend, the more opportunity there is for the rampant fraud, waste, and abuse that unfortunately we see everywhere. All right, guys, we have to move on, unfortunately.